Good morning. We are going to be working on Mrs. Stickle sampler row 7, the last half of the row. And there's a few blocks in here that Mom wants to point out a few things and kind of give you a few pointers on, and then one she wants to go into big detail on. So I think we're going to start with, I'm going to switch chairs here, and then we're going to have her start with what she's going to show you. So let me do, I'll get my oops. One of these days, I'll get this all straightened out. Okay, I have spotlighted the tablet that she's going to be using to show. And what's the first block you want to show, Mom?
The first block I want to show is 7G.
Okay, and that's this one. And what you're wanting to make sure that everybody realizes is what?
Realizes that you need to have this point right here kiss this one.
Okay, we've kind of gone over
all the way around
some of this before, but this is what's going on this one here. So okay, I'm going to pull this out of the way and you start with what you want to.
Okay, to start with, I glued a piece of fabric to unit 3. Doesn't matter, just pick a unit. They're all alike. So I glued the fabric on.
Okay, and that unit is this piece right here.
Yeah. And I did the stitching on the red line, and I trimmed out and got that ready for the applique. Then on the applique, I glued my applique pattern to the fabric and leave some margin of fabric out here. And then I turned the edge. I used my glue technique this time. And
which is, for those that didn't get the last video, what we're doing is using a little bit of washable glue, the washable glue stick. We're putting it on the very edge of the foundation, like
this isn't glued to fabric, but this is what you do. And it works if you put your finger behind it. You're going to get sticky fingers, so you might want a wash rag handy. I just put glue there. Okay. And then I fold the edge over and it'll stick.
Then you go back and you've clipped your pieces here so that and then you folded it back over, and this fabric is just stuck to this glue. So that's another option other than
the water and the starch or what
getting it wet and then folding it. So this is just another option. So when she says glue option, that's what we're talking about.
And on these patterns, I did trim away the red line because of the other factors involved. Okay, so those are ready. Then the next thing I did was I pieced one of the little short pieces. That's this one or this one, doesn't really matter.
These are the pieces that are going out this direction here.
I pieced those, and then the next thing you do is piece this long piece.
All right,
which is this one.
Okay, so you're fixing each of the pieces. These appliques, you're completing those. You're completing this short one, this one, and this one, and getting those all completed.
Right.
Okay.
So then you've got this piece here. Now, I'm going to stick this or clip it onto here. And the easy way to do this is to match up the cut edges. Oh, and before I started, I trimmed the excess foundation on the dotted line on these two lines, not this one, but on these two lines here, just easier to match up. And you're going to cut it off in the long run anyway. So I've got that there. Now I'm going to turn it over, and if you hit the light over there, you'll see that the edge of the applique is on that black line, which is right where we want it.
Okay.
All right. Now then, clip it together, flip it over. Now I'm going to take this first piece that I pieced, and there's the circle 2, so it goes here. There's another circle 2, and I know the point goes out here. I'm going to fold this on the stitching line.
And with your light on your light box, you can kind of see.
So are we going to match? It looks like it, because remember, I have to trim these off.
So you're just kind of placing it there to make sure that your pieces are going to match. This is completed.
Yeah, that one's completed.
This one is just held in place. So you're using this to audition to whether you need to move this applique one way or the other before you applique it down to your background.
Right. And
Okay.
it doesn't matter if it matches perfectly here in the middle or not. If you need to shift it to get it on that line so that it matches up with this, then you can shift it toward the center. And when it's all said and done and you trimmed it up, it won't matter.
Okay. So the matching the lines are a guide, and
Mhm.
and then you just kind of use your pieces and audition and make sure that you don't need to wiggle them anyway.
Right.
Okay.
And then after it's all sewed together, you will sew two of these together, this one and this one and this one. Well, just turn it around where I can see it. So I was working these two here. So you'll sew these 3 units together and press the seams away from that little unit like we show here. Do the same thing over here, and then you're ready to put this long piece in here that's already been pieced, and it needs to match right here and out here. So
okay.
that's all there is to that block, and there's no point in going any farther. These are all alike. There's 2 like this, one like this,
One long one.
one
Okay.
long one, and there's 4 like this.
It's just kind of don't sew the applique down until you've auditioned using this piece to make sure that you don't need to wiggle it just a little bit.
Right.
Okay. All right. That
So
being
that
said,
took care of that. Yeah, that
we
being
go-
said,
moving on to the next one.
let's go to the next one. Let me get myself shifted over here.
Okay, and if we go in alphabetical order, sorta. I
Yeah,
guess we're
let's
looking
go
at
in alphabetical order.
looking at-
No, we're gonna skip K because that's the cliff.
How about L?
Let's talk about L.
Okay. L is this one.
Yeah.
Now, based on what I know, this red piece of fabric is all one piece. Every one of these pieces here is an applique that's put on top.
Mhm.
So you're going to glue this piece down to your foundation, and you're going to sew on these 2 pieces here, just like you do stable piecing. Then you're going to prepare your applique pieces for closed shape, turned edge. Now's when you want to make sure that your process gets them to where they don't overlap.
Okay, and I will tell you this. I stitched on the red lines, and you don't really have to. And here's why. When you get to the end of this thing here, you're going to need, I'm going to have some pins, and I didn't bring them.
You got some right in front of you.
Yes, I do. Thank you. My new plate, my new thing I made, and I don't even use it anymore. So we're going to take and stick a pin right there.
And that's where all the black lines of those appliques come together, right?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
where they all come together.
Okay.
So let's pretend I haven't stitched on the red lines.
Okay, does stitching on the red line help secure the fabric to where it doesn't move when you then apply the appliques?
Yeah, but if you're going to do hand applique, you don't want it stuck to the foundation.
Okay, so then in this case, if you want to do hand applique, do not put the stitch on the placement lines.
Right.
But if you're going to do the other one, then
if you're going to do machined applique, like a zigzag applique, glue's not going to hurt it. It's not going to really help it a lot, but it's okay.
Okay.
Now, I stuck those pins in at that point, and I'm turning them so that they're coming into the center. They're sort of out of the way, but they still mark the place.
So you're marking the place, but you're getting the sharp point of the pin on the back side so you don't get stuck.
Yeah, so I don't get impaled on the thing.
Okay.
Okay, now the applique pieces, you'll match them up. And now I didn't match there we go. Let's get it in the right spot. Okay, that one I missed. These points come together. These points pretty close. These
the points come together in the one it might
and they
not,
don't overlap.
Okay, so you're looking, the pins then in these spots here are a guide for placing these
right
cat's eye shaped piece or pumpkin seed shaped pieces.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So you place them to where they hit
Mm-hmm.
the pins.
Right. And then if I'm doing hand applique, I will start, I'll I'll put a little glue on the back of the foundation that's this pattern, and I'll stick it to the fabric. So it's basically there. Then I will applique around here. Then I'll applique around here and around here and around here. So I've got the center applique down. Then all I've got to do is go around the outside edge.
Just
And
an
those
ease,
are on.
just an ease of doing it.
Yeah, just the ease of doing it.
Okay, and they could do it either way. They could do the entire piece if they want to. That's just the way you chose to do it.
Right, but I
Okay.
chose when I did this was machined applique. When I chose to do it, I started kind of in the middle and I went all the way around the inside. And then I'm right here at, you know, I come to a point and then I just go around the outside edge with the zigzag applique, and it's all down.
Okay.
Then I took and prepared these, which is a piece of cake because it's all straight edge.
Okay.
And I fitted this pattern, the applique pattern, on this first because
Before you put the when you cut the pattern out,
then I tried it here. Is it going to fit? Is the point going to touch here? And is it going to stay inside over here?
before you actually put the fabric on it.
Right.
Okay.
And I wanted it a little shy because we know the fabric's going to make it a thread or two bigger.
Okay.
So I matched all those up first to make sure they were going to fit.
Okay.
When I had them happy, when I was happy with that and I figured they're going to fit, you still don't need any stitched lines. One point's going to go here, one point's going to go here.
There's no place for it to go.
There's no other place that it needs to be. So you don't really have to have the red lines stitched on this one.
Okay.
They're on here if you want to use them, but you don't have to. That's how that one works. And that's probably all we need to talk about on this one.
Okay.
All it is applique. And you have to admit, this would be a pretty plain block if you didn't have these appliques on there.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to move that one off to the side.
Now we're going to
And
go to M.
Okay. Block M is this one. And again, there's a lot of applique on this one.
On block M.
And I think what she wants, if I can get the camera down here close enough, you can see. All right, let me have your little pointer.
My
thing.
little pointer?
Yeah. All right, see if I can do this. You see right here, there's a little seam right there. There's another one right there. These pieces do not come to the middle. They come a little bit shy of that. It allows you to take the bulk out of it. Besides, this is the way Jane did it too. You don't have so much bulk in the middle, but these pieces go here. And then if we go on the other end, it's the same way here. So we've got one piece you applique first, and then this one goes on over the top. The colored ones are the same way. They're just a little harder to see, but that's where the biggest thing is that she was showing me this morning. It's like, oh, okay, I got that now. All right.
So to start off with, we've got unit 1, which is that one, unit 2, unit 3, and unit 4. Okay, it says app 1A, which has a red line, which means it's the first one done. So we look for app 1A pattern.
Okay.
And here it is. This will go right here.
All right. Now, since we're doing 2 different stages of the applique on the foundation, we have 2 colors.
Yes.
So we always do the red applique or the red placement lines first, which is going to keep everybody straight. They're going to do the red lines first and then go to the green line
right
after that. So it's just a thought process, but we've already got the process figured out. So you follow the directions and it should follow right on through with it.
And on this one, we have 1B, which means you glue your piece of fabric, which is the colored one, to here before you ever do any applique. Then you stitch this line and you'll trim out behind it and then do the applique. Then you'll go back and you'll stitch the green line and the applique, which is app 2A, which should have a green line. This green line matches this black line, truthfully, but the green color tells you where to put it. So this applique goes on here, and it's the same process. You cut out on all the solid lines, including the colored line, and then you clip it and turn it and put it on here. So that one's complete. After it's done, set it aside. Then do 2 and you look for 3B, which is red.
Okay, so you're gonna
And
do the red.
that's this one.
You're gonna do all the 4 units the same way
Mhm,
with the red applique first, then the green one,
mhm.
and then you trim them and you set them aside.
You set, well, you're done with that.
Okay.
Once you've got them made, you can trim them up. Trim here.
We've got the numbered numbers on there, so that shows how we suggest you put your units together.
Right. Trim the numbered sides. Leave this one untrimmed.
Right.
Because it's going to be to go out here. Trim this side and this side. And then there's a 2, so this goes to here. You'll trim this side and this side, this one and this one,
And your
and
directions
this one and this one.
the directions will tell you exactly putting it together. The big thing with this block, from what I'm understanding, is the fact that one applique overlaps the other one.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. That's the difference in this one. They don't come to the middle. They're not supposed to. One overlaps the other one, but yet following the colors, you get them done in the correct order.
Now then, also when you sew this number 1 seam, you'll sew from here to here, and you take the foundation out of the seam allowance and press this. You can see the seam has been pressed toward this unit here, and then you'll sew this one on, and the seam has been pressed in this way. Sew this one on, it has been pressed this way. Then you close this seam, and the seam gets pressed, so it rotates, which eliminates some of the bulk in the middle, or distributes it. And you can't see that on this side because we got it on the master anyway.
Okay.
And then after these are together, you remove all the foundation and put it on the master, and then you finish adding these pieces.
The 4 pieces on the outer edge.
So that's basically that one, but you have to watch the order of applique on this one.
Okay, and the colors give you the directions. It's just watch it, but the colors tell you what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah,
Red
the
first,
red and the
then
green.
Then green.
Mhm.
Okay. Any questions so far? Nope. Okay, now we're going to go on to the last one that she wanted to do today, which is really pretty. Because first of all, I like the color. Second of all, I think the block is just very interesting. And this one is block K. So we've got this one right here in the middle would be a piece of cake. But
Yeah.
after that, I'm not so sure about it.
There it is.
Now, I know from looking, this is a solid piece. These 4 corners are solid pieces. This is a solid piece with an applique on top of it. So all of these triangles here are solid with appliques. We've done those. Now the weird piece is going to be this little jewel right in here with these diamonds in it. So that's what she's wanting to show. So I'm going to pull this out of the way.
Okay.
And
now y'all got in your block pattern and the foundation, you got this little guide, and it kind of tells you where these pieces go. And we're told, and this has got a wrinkle in it. Let's turn it over so it looks pretty. And we're told to put this on top and then cut on all the lines. Well, I want to throw a monkey wrench in work because I don't want to cut on all the lines. So I'm going to line it up this way.
Why don't you want to cut on all the lines?
Because I want to save this. I might want to do something later.
Oh, I just make a copy of it.
Yeah, well.
Okay.
I took this one and I took a friction pen and I shifted that down and I put a mark there.
Okay.
Do the same way here. Right at that mark, put a mark.
At the very outer edge.
Yep.
Okay.
And then I've got a little extra one that I can move.
Cutting mat, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I'm going to take this ruler and I'm going to, well, I don't know if I'm going to go corner to corner or not. I need a little bit longer ruler.
Okay. How about that one?
That's good.
Okay.
Okay, the first thing I want to do is go corner to corner each
Okay,
way.
we're with the pattern. Let's lay it right here in front. Okay, so this is what we're doing. All you marked.
I don't need to mark at the corners because it's going to go corner to corner.
All right, so the only thing we're cutting is one straight line here, and we're doing a corner and a corner. So the only thing you had to mark was this end of this line and that end of that line. So we got those marked. Now leave it laying on your cutting mat and cut without moving it. So that's why the little one works well.
And I went and moved it
And
anyway.
you moved it anyway.
Close enough. It's oversized. Remember that.
That's one thing we do all have to remember is foundation piecing, stable piecing, all of this, your pieces are oversized. So the cutting does not have to be as precise as if you are cutting for standard piecing. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not worried with that one.
Okay. Well,
they're okay. They're okay. They're done.
That's fine. Now, don't move them apart yet. Pull that little guy back up there, please. All right. Now,
and this is what you got.
This is what we said to do. This is what you've got. So you've got exactly the same thing. It's just another way to accomplish it. Okay. Now we'll move the pattern out of the way.
Okay. Now I already did this one. And to look at this, you're going to realize you've got a lot of little spiky, peaky points. That's okay. Just leave them there.
Okay. Can I ask one thing here? You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 pieces going around every one of these little pieces here. Okay. When you put these, you've got 2 layers of fabric. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 2 layers of fabric is going to give you 2 of these little,
right?
2 of these little things.
And ordinarily you get 4 pieces of fabric like this. And for demonstration purposes, I only stacked 2 and cut them.
But we tell you to cut 4. So you can cut them individually if you want to.
Either way.
But keep them together in this shape.
Okay, now then, the next thing comes up. It's unit 6
Before we go on, if you look at your pattern, the reason I say keep it together in that shape, look at the notations that are printed on this piece here. This tells you where each one of these goes. So that's part of the reason is to keep it together is so you know which one goes where. Okay, now we'll move it off to the side. Okay, now I already pieced 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. And when I pieced these 2A and 3A onto this one, I cut a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Although a 1/4 inch seam allowance is going to be way too big. I cut a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then I sewed a 1/4 inch seam. As soon as that little seam right there was sewn, I folded the foundation back and I used my add an 1/8 ruler to trim this back to 1/8 of an inch. Okay. It's much more accurate to do it this way rather than cut 1/8 because 1/8 of an inch isn't very big when you come to seam allowances and it can slip the wrong way so easy. So I cut it at 1/4, I sew it at 1/4, and then I cut it back to 1/8. Okay. And that's the way that one. I do it here and here, but not here because 1/4 of an inch is going to go up into here. Okay. I have 2 of them pieced. All right. And I've trimmed. These are the next 2 then. Right. Okay. Trimmed. And you can kind of see how they come together. And we're looking at these little bitty shape pieces right here. Tiny pieces. Yeah. And you're going to have lots of little peaky points sticking out. Okay. Before I do anything else, I take and I lay this ruler right along that seam line. And I'm going to extend that seam line. Okay. You want to sew through the seam allowance. You want to sew through. You want to start out here, and when I get to here, I backstitch a couple of stitches. When I get to here, I backstitch
a couple stitches, and then I go right on off. And you're going to have,
Okay, why do you backstitch there?
well, you've got to tear away this foundation from the seam allowance. And
Okay,
if you don't backstitch, sometimes when you get out here, you can pull the stitches out.
okay,
Been there, done that.
okay. All right,
So
that's fine.
the word to the wise.
Yeah.
Okay, so this piece of fabric will have gone here, and its mirror image will have gone here.
Okay, so what she's done is she's picked up those two, and one's one way and one's
One of
the
the-
other.
And then this one is going to go here, but of course it goes up like this, so you've got your seam allowance.
Okay, so those are the 3A pieces that are going to go on that one spot.
Yeah, and you can see how much these points are going to stick over. That's what we've got left here.
Mhm.
All
Just
right.
gives you something to hang on to
Right.
because you're dealing with such very small pieces.
So after you've pieced this one, and you got to add this, these don't have it because they don't need that little square. They're the opposites. Then after you piece this one and piece this one, you'll go and you'll match up this point with this point.
Okay.
And then you'll match, and I'm showing you on a foundation that doesn't have any fabric on it. This point, well, that one is off. All right, let's fix it. Good enough. Right there. So they're supposedly they're pinned together or clamped together. Then I'll take, and I'll leave pins along here because I want that line. It's got to match up because it's such a small piece. If it doesn't match, we're in trouble. It won't fit right. Okay, so I have my pins along the seam line. Then I'm going to start sewing out here. And I'm going to sew from here, little into it, a back stitch, and then on a back stitch. No, not there, but a back stitch onto here,
And then off
and
the
then
edge.
off, then to the end of it. And you're still going to have peaky points sticking out there,
Okay.
but you've got it secured out a ways.
Okay.
Okay, that's taken care of. Now then, I'm going to go back to this one.
Now you've sewn the middle, you've sewn
I've
these,
sewn that middle seam.
you've sewn this, and this is what the thing looks like. It's kind of a little bit, it looks like a bad hair day.
And I trimmed this point off, and you'll see I should not have, because it's right there at that seam line.
Okay. So it's one of those learn, don't
Mhm.
trim anything off until you get done.
It looks terrible, but don't trim it off until you get done.
Okay.
So then the next thing to do,
After you've sewn that seam in the middle.
after I've sewn that seam in the middle, comes the pressing. And on this one, you want to press the colored open, and then you want to let the other ones go. You don't press this open, because if you did that, I'm going to shove these over just a flicker. If you pressed this seam this way, which is open, look at the little gap you've got there.
Okay, I see that.
So don't press it open. You don't need to. Leave it, but this one and this one need to be pressed open.
Okay.
And then this one goes this way, this one goes this way. Now, the next
Okay,
thing
let me get just a little bit closer. Hang on a minute.
okay.
Okay. Now flip this one back over the way you were showing here, this thing.
If I pressed this part open, I'd end up, see, I have to go on this way.
Right.
I'd end up with a little gap right there.
Right.
And since I'm going to be sewing on this line, you'll never see it.
Mm-hmm.
But it pays not to cut these long spiky points off before you need to.
Right. Okay. So
And it's the same way. This one is pressed this way, and this piece from here is pressed this way.
Okay. And these are not hooked together here
Right.
because you don't sew through the seam allowance when you're putting these on.
Right.
In this case.
In this case, you don't sew through this seam allowance.
So that means you can press this colored fabric open and yet press the background one direction. It looks like it's been pressed open, but I can see it's not been.
Mhm.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, so now this says the circle 4. And that means it goes on this side of this piece. Now, I've already trimmed this one up. It's nice and clean. Get these little pieces over here. I know where they go, so I'm going to shove them off to the side.
And for me, I would keep them on that page because I
Yeah.
wouldn't know where they went. I would probably pin them to the page so that at least I knew where they were, and that way they wouldn't get away from me.
Good idea. Now then, 4 to 4.
Okay, so you're just trimming on the dashed line to trim that one side up. Oh, that looks nice already.
Yeah, amazing what a trim will do. Give them a haircut and they really look good.
Okay, so now again, you're lining up your corners. Here again, this one is picky.
Really picky.
Okay. Line up the other one. Now, do you line it? You don't have anything to line up in the middle. There's no seams to line up in the middle, so you just want to make sure that the line you sew on this side, it matches the one on the other side.
Yeah, and you're going to have to eyeball it, I think, when you come to this one.
Because you're going across some fabric, so you're not going to be able to see
it. I've got them lined up there.
Okay.
So now I'm going to go to this. And I'm going to start at the end of the line. Usually I don't because of the bulk, but in this case I am.
Okay.
And a little back stitch. Now then, if I line my tool up, I can see I'm pretty much on the money.
And it's one of those, you got your fingers down there, you're using a pointer, you're using all this kind of stuff. So it's like very slow, very tedious. Okay, almost done.
All right, now comes the test to see if it looks good. And it does.
Okay, let's lay it down here on the black one because it tends to look. That works well. Okay, so that one seam now is lined up, and we haven't cut off any points here
Right.
or here. And there's actually maybe a thread of color in one place or the other that shows how that's the separation there.
And the seam allowance gets pressed to the center block. You wouldn't want to press it away because there's just too much stuff in the way.
It's going to want to go that way anyway.
It's going to go that way anyhow.
Okay.
So,
and then what are you doing now?
I'm tearing the seam, the
foundation out of the seam
foundation
allowance?
out of the seam allowance.
Okay, so only out of the seam allowance.
Yep.
Right now.
Right now, only out of the seam allowance.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
And that's going to make it lay a little bit nicer too.
And I'm going to go over here and give a quick press. So that one's on. Now, the next one
goes on the other side, doesn't it?
Goes over here.
So you're going to do the same thing with it.
And I have it all pressed. Seam allowances going the way they should. This one I didn't sew out to the end. I think it's going to be all right anyway. I was in a hurry.
It's one of those play with it, we're in a hurry, or we learn things as we go along, and maybe the samples we've learned on.
So now I'm back to.
You're going to trim that down.
Going to trim this down. And when you get ready to trim it down, I would get your line to match out here. And right here, in other words.
So you're matching the quarter
you're
inch
matching-
mark on your ruler to the solid sewing line
Mhm,
on the foundation.
mhm.
The dashed line is a quarter of an inch away, but it is also a guide.
But also remember, you've got a seam that crosses in here that may throw that off just a little bit. So you're better off to go with the straight sewing line.
Okay.
And this piece is ready to go on.
Doing it the same way.
And remember, we got all these little points. You want to make sure they don't get turned down to where they get, where
Okay.
you can see them on the front of the block.
Okay. This one is really one of the prettier ones out of the whole thing. As far as I'm concerned, I really like this one. And I
It's
like the
also a pain
fabric.
in the neck to make, but
Yeah. But I like the fabric. I like the pink fabric, but it's really a pretty fabric. I could see this one being a large block. I could see it being more like an 8 or 9 inch block. And seeing how it would be a nice one. You still get the
be a
look
whole
of
lot easier to piece. It was a 9-inch block.
it would, yes, but I could see it being, I don't know if a 12-inch block would lose some of the I don't know, the femininity, I'm gonna say, of it, or the oh, the words are not coming.
The daintiness of it.
Yes, the daintiness, that's it. So I don't know if that would lose part of it. You get too big and you lose something of it. But I really think this one would be just gorgeous as a large block. If it were large, you could actually piece the corners rather than having to applique those two. That might be a way to piece it rather than applique. Just throwing out thoughts. We don't want me to think too much. We usually end up with issues when I think too much. So I think we're
Yeah,
gonna leave
but
it
then
alone.
we what if, and then we come up with another plan.
We do.
We have all kinds of, that's how we come up with a lot of our design. Okay, and we're back to this again, and this is what it looks like.
Okay. So the pieces are going on,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the way that piece is done.
That piece
And
goes.
the other two pieces that go here have got this middle plus two pieces on the end. And
Right.
that's all they are.
That's all they are. You've got 4 pieces. They'll go together like this. Well, they'll overlap like so.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how they'll go together. And you got this little square on this end, this little square on this end of this one, and likewise with these, and that makes up the rest of these.
Rest of the middle.
Yeah.
And then your outer edge is just one piece of fabric that you put onto the corners. It's just a single triangle. After all of those are on and trimmed down, it's a single triangle that goes on.
Then you stitch on the line.
And you do
if you want to.
And then you do your applique pieces for the corners.
Right. So that's the hardest block, I think. I think that's probably the hardest block in the whole quilt. I've spent more time perfecting it, and I'm still not perfect, but we keep trying.
Okay. Is there any questions? No, no. Okay. Well, in that case, then I think we may, if there's nothing else, I think we may call it a little early. I think we've gone through it, and we'll post this up shortly. Hopefully I can get it done over the weekend. And but anything else? We're trying to get the next row ready to go out Monday.
Okay.
So
and as before, if you have questions, message me or email me, and I'll be happy to help you if I need to clear something up on this, on what we did today.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, sure.
And I don't remember which block it was. I think it was the first one you did or the second one, with the melon pieces on it, and it had actually it was seamed in the corner.
okay, was it put on the melon? The pieces were, the background was seamed together, and then the melon was put on over the top of it.
No.
Okay.
It might have been the
Find
second
that
block you did. I should have written down which I wrote other notes, but I didn't write that one down. Well, my question is this. If Jane pieced it that way, because this was the one where to me it looked like it was, like the muslin and then 4 melon pieces on it, but actually, or pumpkin seeds, whichever way you want to call them, but it actually you had a seam, like each little quadrant
Mhm.
had a seam coming over.
Okay, once in a great while, and I don't know, we'll have to find the one that you're talking about and kind of go back through that, but once in a great while, what we tried to do, Mom was trying to keep all the seams where Jane put them when they
Okay.
could be done.
Okay.
So if Jane put a seam in there, we tried to leave it there.
Okay.
Sometimes it just was not possible to hardly do and then be able to teach how to do that.
This one
Okay.
has a seam that does the seam, and this one's not necessary, but her quilt had it.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I was wondering, yeah, and that's another one. That's a good example because to
Mhm.
me, I'm still debating if I'm going to put the seam in.
And you can change your mind
Sure.
and do
Yeah.
that too. The seams that we put in are basically, they're put in so that Jane, if Jane wanted the seams, if she wanted to put the seams in there, then we tried to leave the seams in. Now, for me, I think an applique over the whole thing
Yep.
with one piece would be a little less, but that may have been the size pieces that she had to
It
deal
could
with.
be. That's true. That's
Because
true.
a lot of the pieces that she was dealing with were what we think the shapes of them were the shapes that would have been left over after some kind of a garment
Mm-hmm.
A
piece
lot of
was
it was
sewn.
after a collar was cut or something like that.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
the collar stand.
Yeah, so a lot of it was that way. So she probably had 4 different pieces that were very similarly shaped
Mm-hmm.
and did it that way. So if we could, we left the seams the way they were, the way she did it, just to preserve the historical value of it.
Right.
But that there are more efficient ways to do this.
Mm-hmm.
This is just the way, just to keeping it as close to hers as what we could. And it was
Gotcha.
kind of neat
Yeah.
to try to think about what fabric she had and
Oh.
what she was actually doing.
Yeah. I wonder that a
So with
lot.
that, though, it's really
Yeah.
kind of a neat, that was kind of an interesting journey when let me sit down.
Mhm.
When Mom creates the patterns and then I write them so that they're presentable for you guys. And as I'm reading through what she's written and the construction that she's got, and I've got a picture of the original block out of the original quilt, and it's like, why in the world are we doing it this way? Because my
Yeah.
mind is very logical,
Mm-hmm.
time efficiency type thing. And sometimes that is not the best way to do it. And in
Mhm.
keeping this as close to the original as possible, I'm learning a lot more about her construction based on what she had to work with.
Yeah.
And
Okay, that answers, yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Consist-
there are definitely more efficient ways to do it. With different pieces that can be done in whole pieces, whole chunks rather than smaller pieces, much
Mhm.
more efficient ways, but you lose that historical value of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah, there are definitely other ways to accomplish the same thing.
Okay.
So
That
anyway,
answered that. I
think-
figured that was the answer, that she did it that way. That's why you did, not trying to
Right.
make extra work. So
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
my goal was to reproduce instead of re-engineering.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
That was the goal, to not re-engineer or redesign her blocks, was to just reproduce what she did,
Mhm.
because I
Mhm.
knew she did it with only what she had and couldn't buy didn't buy new fabric. We didn't buy new fabric for quilts until what, 40 years ago.
Mm. Yeah.
So, okay.
All
Well,
righty.
I
Thank you.
think we're going to call it, and I'm going to stop the recording, and we will. Oh, why did it say recording?
Yeah, it's still recording.
It still is.